And then we have Indu and Bhavani. Between them, they have like 4 decades of database experience, I would say. So you are in for a great show, guys. The talk is about the future of AI ML with Postgres. Let me hand it over to Indu.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. A warm welcome. So the topic for today's event from our side is shaping Postgres with AI/ML. So I think, thank you, Sandeep, for giving insights on how Postgres is going to accelerate the AI/ML development. So just wanted to get an audience poll. So what is the percentage, or probably has anybody not yet started the development in AI/ML? Do we have anyone who has not yet started the development in AI/ML? Oh, okay, that's good. And I have seen few members are new to Postgres as well. So this session basically covers a high-level overview of the AI/ML concepts, and also we are going to see some of the key capabilities of Postgres and how it's going to integrate with AI/ML development in changing the future technologies, especially, and helping with the data-driven solutions. So having said that, maybe I'll just quickly introduce myself. I am InduTeja Aligeti. I am working for AWS as a senior lead consultant. I have around 20 years of experience in IT industry, and my core skill set is into multi-cloud and multi-database platforms. And I have Bhavani with me. Bhavani, can you introduce yourself? Yeah, thank you. So here is the agenda for today's session. So we'll go over the overview of AI concepts, since I see a couple of members are still not into the AI world, but we'll see that. We'll just try to understand those concepts. At a high level, I know this is a very vast, in-depth kind of sessions are required, but this is just an introductory session for all of you to just get an idea of the AI concepts. And then we are going to see what are the steps involved in the AI development life cycle. Okay, post that we'll see why PostgreSQL AI/ML, what are those key capabilities, and then we'll dive deep into those capabilities. Then finally we'll conclude with use cases and the various different business domains, and how is it going to shape the technology in those business domains. Yeah, so before going into the AI concepts, I just want to take a minute to talk about why are business adopting AI. So we see the buzzword all around, right, with AI/ML these days. So why is it so important for us to be in this journey? So there are like pretty popular studies, which I just wanted to quote in some examples from these companies who have predicted that by 2026, the global spending on artificial intelligence is going to reach around $300 billion. So that is almost like 4.2 times faster than the current IT spend. So, and from the Gartner study, you could see that almost 34% of enterprises have already deployed in the AI, and we are seeing much more in the coming months. And from McKinsey and Company, we see that especially the generative AI is going to grab in the market, and it's going to impact the overall artificial intelligence by 15 to 40%. So you can see the pulse of AI being growing in the industry. So I think it is going to open up a lot of opportunities and going to be the top strategic technology. So it's the right time that we should get into this and grab the opportunity. Yeah, going on to the overview of AI concepts. So let's try to understand these core important concepts of artificial intelligence. Firstly, what is artificial intelligence? Basically, it's just a science of making machines or computers which mimic the human behavior or human intelligence. So as simple as that. So let me take an example of a self-driving car. So it actually takes the data of the sensors, and then the car drives itself without a driver. So isn't it like mimicking human behavior? So similarly, like it's just working on the programming on something so that it behaves like a human or mimics a human intelligence. That is all artificial intelligence. Now get into machine learning. So what is machine learning? It's a branch under artificial intelligence, or a subset of artificial intelligence. Basically, it works on the trained data and a set of algorithms to generate a model, and that model is going to predict or behave like a human behavior. So we'll see in depth what exactly is this when we go into the subsequent slides. And then deep learning. So deep learning is a branch under machine learning. So it has got basically multi-layered structure, and it works with a neural network concept, like how our brain works. So this helps in improving the accuracy of the prediction. So, and then going on to the generative AI. So as the name indicates, so it is going to generate a quality content for us. And then content could be the text, chat, video, images, or anything. So let's deep dive into each of this. Yeah, so what is machine learning? So before going into that, we'll just, as we all know, the traditional programming, right? So what we do in our traditional programming, we give an input, and then we do a program, and then we expect an output out of that. So let me give a very simple example where we give input as 2 and 3, and we write a program for addition. And then we are expecting an output as 5 from that program. So that is a typical traditional programming. So what happens in machine learning is we give the input, we also give the output. So in the sense that, same example, so I'm giving 2, 3, as well as I'm giving 5 to the machine. And that machine is going to predict an answer for me when I give another input. So it's like if I give 7 and 3, it should give me 10. So how does it happen is like we train this particular machine with all this data, and then based on an algorithm, it's going to generate a model, and that model is going to predict the information for us. So that is the base concept of the machine learning. So if you see at the bottom, so to get a better understanding on machine learning, so we are giving the training data to the algorithm here, and then the algorithm is going to generate a model for us. And then that model is going to predict the insights. Insights is nothing predicting something for us, right? So let's say the outcome or the insights is not as per the expectation. So what we do is like we train the data. So the more the data we have, or the more the data we train to the model, the better the accuracy we get it. So that's why training data or training a model is very important in machine learning to improve the accuracy and get a better predictions. And just going to the high-level process inside the machine learning. So we send or receive the data, and we analyze the data. Basically, we find the data patterns. So the machine has to identify what are the patterns between them, and then that makes the predictions and sends the answer to us. Yeah, so this is a typical functioning of a machine learning. And then going to the deep learning. So we have seen that machine learning works on the function of like algorithm and model. So if you see, there is a concept of features. So what is this features then? So basically, we give input to the machine, right? So that input altogether is not really needed for the machine to make predictions. It's just the important characteristics which are needed for the machine to make predictions. Let's say, let me give all the fruits to the machine, and it should predict me whether it is mango or apple or not. So for that, So we give the data of size, color, shape, everything. But what is important? Color is important, one of the key important factor for predicting. So these are the features. So the features are nothing but the important characteristics which are required to the machine for helping in making the predictions. So in machine learning, so we give these features to the algorithm, and then again the algorithm is going to generate a model, and that model is going to predict the data for us. But what happens in deep learning is we just dump the unlabeled data or unstructured data, and this is going to itself go through a different layers of the processing, and it has got many algorithms, not working on a single algorithm. It goes into the multi-layered structure, and then that is going to predict the data for us. So if you see at the bottom, so whatever the processing which has more than 3 layers, that comes under deep learning. So both does the predictions, but what's the difference is, firstly, the data. So we really don't need to give any feature extraction and selection to the model or the machine for that. And deep learning is going to handle a huge data. And for handling the huge data, we definitely need a high computational power. So, but ultimately the goal and the difference, what it's going to create is the accuracy. So we are going to get a better accuracy and less error-prone prediction from deep learning. And the famous example would be the image recognition or face recognition, which we have already seen, right? So that works under this deep learning model. And now going to the generative AI. So what happens in generative AI is, so the concept of foundational model is important here. So foundational model is a pre-trained model. So this has been trained with enormous data, and this data is all coming from internet. Everything has been fed to that, and then it has been trained in such a way that when you give an input to this foundation model, it is going to generalize the output for us. And some of the key terms we usually use in generative AI is, for input, we call it as prompt, and then the output, we call it as completion. Yeah, so as I said, it is going to generate a quality content. And content is nothing but it could be the text, chat, image, video, code generation. So anything, it can be anything. You can give input as a text, and you can expect that, or you can give, it's like it's going to generalize that with that foundation model. Yeah, so moving on to next one, so then what's the difference between the traditional ML model and foundation model? So let's say you wanted to work on a certain task like text generation, summarization. So these are the different tasks. So if we want to achieve the same thing from traditional model and foundational model, what is the difference? So in traditional model, we will have to actually work on different models for each of these tasks, and that model needs to be fed with different inputs. But here in foundation model, the foundation model is already pre-trained with all the data. So you just give input, and in that it is going to give the output of different tasks. It's not that it's going to go through different models to generate those. So it's already pre-trained. So that is what is the generalization. You can get anything out of that. So, but whereas in traditional model, you have to run through a particular model to get text generation, and then you have to run through another model to get the summarization, something like that. So that's the major difference. And definitely the computation power which is required to get through this foundation model is very huge. And some of the popular foundation models which you might already know would be the ChatGPT. I think it's just pretty popular these days. So that is nothing but your foundation model. We call it as a large language model as well. All right. So now that we have seen at a high level what are these AI concepts, now we'll see what are the different steps involved in this AI ML development. What are the core steps involved in the AI ML development life cycle? So firstly, we identify the objectives and requirements. So it's nothing but what is your type of data. So and then what is the resource allocation required for you. And then gathering the data, in terms of gathering the data, you will need to know what type of data. So it could be structured, unstructured, semi-structured. So all these things can be identified in this particular stage. And then in the data preparation and manipulation, you're going to do the feature selection and then clean up and then send it to the models. And then fourth is model selection. So there are many models available. So we will have to choose the right model to get the desired outcome for us. So that is important in this particular step. And then fifth step is training the data. So we have seen how training the data is going to improve the accuracy for machine learning. So in this stage, we are going to train that. And in validation and testing phase, we are going to tune the model. So if the model is not giving the output as per the desired outcome, so then what we are going to do is we have to train that or do the fine tuning of that particular model. And then finally, deployment and maintenance. So basically, mostly all the AI development goes through these phases or the steps to complete or accomplish a particular use case. And then we'll see why Postgres in AI/ML. I think Sandeep has already covered a couple of key capabilities for us, but we will be diving deep into these things in the next subsequent slides. But just to call out, firstly, the unified data management. So here, PostgreSQL has got capabilities to handle structured, semi-structured, all kinds of data, so including the relational database. So secondly, once scalable data storage and workload optimization. It's not just storing the data, but the retrieval is also faster in Postgres. And then integration with AI/ML extensions. So Postgres is pretty popular with the extensions. It has got inbuilt extensions, and it also can integrate with the third-party extensions. So we will see all those different extensions, which are the AI/ML framework, which will help in the development of AI. And then enhanced security and compliance. So this is going to help in, we'll see what are those features which are going to secure our database, not just retrieval or data. So that is also very important for us to ensure this data is secure. And then monitoring and visualization. Yes, we have got very good features with Postgres, which will help in this monitoring. And then simplified development and version control. Yeah, so for the deployment, what are the different things which have to look forward for deployment and version control is that one of the key capabilities which we'll dive deep into. And then I think from here I'll hand it over to Bhavani to take you forward on these features across the capabilities. Yeah, Bhavani, you can carry on.
Most of the high-level topics, I'm going to just cover high-level options or the features or the capabilities which will help us to develop the Postgres applications or the Postgres capabilities. So when we talk about the database management, right, we know very well that right now we are handling huge amount of data, and searching or building an application is really a critical one. So what we need to really consider is how the data is managed, what are the data types that it requires, how easily we can access the data, process it, and analyze the data. Ultimately, not storing data is not enough. We need to analyze the data for our future model creations. So couple of things that we need to consider is in a traditional relational database, we used to have most of the data in a structured format. Now that we are handling unstructured and semi-structured data, we need to see the capabilities from the Postgres side, like what are the data types for storing data. So a couple of things what we highlighted are something like JSON type, where it is used for storing and querying the data, especially for the semi-structured and unstructured data. And the main difference between the JSON and JSONB is While writing the data, it might take a little bit of time for the JSON-B, but for the retrieval, right, because writing is only one-time activity, but retrieval is something like an ongoing process. So the retrieval process is very fast using the JSON data type. Moving on to the head store, right? So what it does is it handles the data in the key value pairs. So when you talk about key value pairs, what the key functionality here is, as we are saying that it is handling the semi-structured and unstructured data, with the data which we are handling, we are not restricting to follow a specific schema or a specific data type. So when we have to really handle different data types, and we should be something like, it shouldn't be a schema driven or schema is a mandatory thing, then we go with the key value pair options. And basically the notable factor here about the head store is that it handles the schemaless and NoSQL data storage is possible through the head store. That is the key functionality of head store. And moving on, array types is something we already know. Again, considering when a large amount of data, and when we have the same type of data types that we need to handle, let's go for listing out all the values in a single column. That is more about the array types. So moving on PG vector, I'm not going to focus much on the PG vector because Sandeep already gave some introduction, and there is already a session in the coming sessions there. PG vector is covered in detail. But basically at a high level, the capabilities of PG vector is something like search operations. When you talk about search operations, right, from the development perspective, we need to see what are the capabilities that it provides. And not only the capabilities, it might be having 100 different capabilities, but we need to, based on the customer need or the use case, we need to analyze what capability is fit for this. Like we have multiple options, like how it handles high dimensional vector embeddings is something which is a key factor here. That is more about how do we handle the large amount of data and analyze it. Moving on, as Indu mentioned, the scalable data storage and workloads. So data management is one side, and how we are handling the data is the key factor here. So let's say we are handling huge amount of the data in the database, but we need to have a proper process in place, like how are we retrieving the data and how is it used for the development or from the execution perspective, because when you are dealing with the large amount of data, we also need to consider from the performance point of view, like whether we should use parallelism, table partitioning and all those things. So a couple of capabilities which Postgres provides while handling is horizontal scaling. That means it supports a distributed database, and couple of the options which are available in PG are like PG shard, PG bouncer, and it also helps in the high availability using the physical replication as well. And table partitioning, as we already know, when we are handling huge amount of data, we really need to implement the table partitioning, where it splits the data into partitions, and by implementing this, we can have the fast retrieval of the data. So the table partition is something, we have multiple options like range partitioning, hash partitioning, or the list partitioning. And just to give one example, like range partitioning means you are not touching the entire data set. You are giving a range and creating a partition, so it will only touch that one. So obviously the data retrieval will be faster. So all these options are available. Like one of the things is parallel query execution. Now that you created the partitions, how quickly you can execute the process is something like where I can apply the parallelism, how quickly I can use the parallel execution process by creating the different indexes, using the scans and all those things. And advanced indexing, there are a couple of options that we can implement in Postgres. But again, when you are applying any advanced indexing, right, you need to see whether your data is a similar data type, or it has something like a composite values, or are you storing any text format or image format. Based on that, the specific indexing will be applied, because the indexing, as you know, it's like a tree structure, right? How how and which model fits here is something we need to decide. But these are all the capabilities which Postgres is offering. And PG vector indexing, especially when it is talking about the PG vector indexing, right? The main things what we need to focus, now that everything is unstructured format, there are multiple things that we need to take care, like how is the image recognition process, handwritten recognition process, and some natural language recognition process. All those capabilities can be done through the PG vector indexing, because the way that particular index is applied, ultimately the end goal is how quickly we can search that particular data. So as we mentioned, right, so when we want to really use the AI capabilities, somewhere it should either be that functionality or that capability should be available in Postgres. So for that, what are the, how it can be handled is, the AI/ML functionalities can be used within Postgres through some of the extensions. Those extensions are integrated within Postgres. I know it's evolving, and that functionalities are still developed, and every time we get a new version and new capabilities are there. But some of the examples which we listed down as from the integration perspective, what are the extensions which are available in Postgres are something from the model development and serving process, like Sandeep already mentioned about the Postgres ML, how the machine learning capabilities can be used within the Postgres. So Postgres, from the procedural language perspective, we have a couple of procedural languages. Like if you really want to go with Python, you have Python, we have PL Perl, and a couple of other options. So when we talk about the foreign data wrappers, that means you are actually able to connect and integrate to the external systems, not just by exposing the database, but you internally integrating it with the external systems are integrated within the system. So those are capabilities through the FDWs. And in data analytics, machine learning libraries, as we know, the TensorFlow and PyTorch. For PyTorch, right, it is using Python. And it is mainly, I mean, one of the use cases for this is a deep learning use case. And Tensor is something where if you want to recognize an image recognition process, you can go with the TensorFlow as well. And from the spatial data management perspective, you have something called as PostGIS as an extension, where when you really want to go with the geographic objects, right, you need to go ahead with this particular extension. So again, in a nutshell, what we are trying to cover is, based on the scenario, based on the use case, Postgres offers quite a number of extensions. We need to understand those and adapt wherever it fits in our engagements. Yeah, and when it comes to the security and compliance, right? See, now that we are handling huge data, and most of the data is available in the internet, special care should be taken from the security perspective, not only from the management of the data, just to handle any risks, or from the regulatory process from the company. So every company, when it is dealing with any of the databases, right, it has its own regulation, compliance and governance policies. So it should meet those things. So we have from the Postgres perspective, right, we have how the encryption is managed, the auditing, logging, authentication process. Can you get some water? Sorry. So from the auditing and logging perspective, and from the security perspective, right, we have something like CP crypto and PG audit. Just to highlight about the CP crypto, right, it handles something like encryption of the data and decryption of the data in a very well mannered. So these are a couple of things which are very mandatory, and as we already covered in the previous session about the compliance features from the asset perspective. So this is one important topic that we need to take care, because sometimes what happens is we handle the huge amount of data, but we might not focus on the security, which can lead to either a SOX issue or a something, right, violation of the, it can lead to any fraud as well. So we need to take care of the security perspective and leverage the Postgres options. And from the monitoring and visualization perspective, why the monitoring is important is, as we already know, implementing a solution is one aspect, but when we monitor it, right, we can focus on how we can improve this process. It's not that one-time investment, right? We created a model, but in a long run, let's say if based on the amount of data, if it is taking time, or we have an options to leverage the functionalities, we can look for the logs, because monitoring is one such thing where we capture the logs, analyze the logs, so that we can improve our functionality or the models what we have created. So for that purpose, from the visualization and also from the monitoring perspective, when we log the data, when the data itself is too large, even the log will be too huge, right? So it has the capabilities, Postgres has the capabilities to integrate with some of the visualization things like Tabulae, Grafana and all those things, so that from the visualization perspective, we can see the results, see the metrics, and understand the logs, and better create our models. So this actually helps in improving the overall models what we created. And as it already said that PG stats, right, from the statistical perspective, how we can read the data, analyze it, and is something which is available in PG stat. And PG Badger, right, a log analyzer that helps in monitoring and optimizing the Postgres performance. From the performance perspective, this is a log analyzer which helps in understanding more from the data perspective. Yeah, and when you talk about the simplified deployments and version control, right, we know that when we are developing, it's not that one copy of the data which will be maintained, right? So once we start development, there will be copies of enhancements which will be done. So definitely there will be multiple versions which will be available, right? So how the multiple versions and configurations are managed is a key part here. So it cannot be that at any point of time we have only one copy. So something to maintain how simplified deployment process will be there is something which is supported in the Postgres, and especially like let's say it's maintained in a schema. Each version is something maintained in a schema, or something like in each environment is maintained in a schema. Then the schema management and the cross schema extraction is something which is possible and a key feature in the deployment or version control process. And as we said, So how do we administer the Postgres database? We have something like tools available like PGSQL or PGAdmin, where we can track, where we can access our databases and utilize all these functionalities. So in the conclusion, right, so we talked about high level some of the features which are capabilities that Postgres provides in building the AML. Why we are talking about the AML is we are handling with the distributed databases and large amount of data. So in the real world, like let's say in the advanced analytics, when we are talking about the analytics, right, there is something like descriptive analytics, diagnostic analytics, and something like a predictive analytics. That means we are trying to identify what happened and why it happened, and something like what we can do. That is more under the advanced analytics, like we need to first identify what is happening, then we need to find a solution, find out a way that why it happened, and provide a solution for predictive analytics. Now that we are handling the real-time analytics or real-time data in every domain, we need to ensure that what happens tomorrow. So from that perspective, we need to see that how all the topics that we covered at compliance perspective. So every time we cannot build a logic to handle the compliance, right? How can we automate the compliance factors? What are the different data advanced analytical capabilities that it provides? So let's say if we take the travel and travel domain, right? We know that when we book a ticket, dynamically the pricing changes, right? So these are a couple of the functionalities that we need to take care to handle the AI models and something like what are the schedules of the aircrafts and something like that. So when we talk about something like financial services, how the production process is maintained, what is the prediction that we have to take care, and also from the fraud and risk perspective, how do we take care the proper measures so that our data is not exposed or our data is maintained very properly. So a couple of things are something related to the different subtasks that needs to be covered, the use cases that are under the financial sector. So let's take a banking sector. In a banking sector, mostly we ensure that customer satisfaction is one key thing, and the other thing is to maintain the customer satisfaction. We ensure that the production systems are processing is very accurate. So those are a couple of things. When we define the model, we need to define the model based on the different use cases. So let's say when we talk about the manufacturing, right? What is the demand? I can build 10 different machines, but what is the demand? How do I forecast that what is the demand? And based on the demand, this demand forecasting is very important, because when I create a machinery, I have an idea whether I should create, how much should be the volume of that, and then I can take a step of whether I should go with the so something that is related to the demand forecasting. So a couple of these are like let's say healthcare, right? Healthcare, you know that how many when an inpatient comes, what are the data, what is the different models, what are the different models that it can serve in the real world when an inpatient data should be maintained, what are the different diagnostics. Just by looking into a couple of the parameters, we analyze that what are the diagnostics that we need to give. And something like when the hospitals are built, right, they will predict, like let's say now I have 10 beds with 2 doctors. They will predict the flow of the patients, and then they do a predictive analytics so that in the coming 10 years, how much can be how many patients can come, so how many doctors I should appoint, how many beds I should have, will this building be sufficient, should I go and build another should I have another building. So all these things are covered under the predictive analytics. So a couple of these are something which we gathered, and as you know, the key benefits is accuracy is the main thing when we are dealing with the data, accuracy and the productivity of the data, and ultimately the cost savings. Thank you. Any questions?
Try now.
Was there a statement that was made along multiple RDBMSs and then finally Postgres decided on the best? Or what was the conclusion here?
So you are data discovery.
Yeah, so your question is like how Postgres is unique or comparative to other databases or something like that. Yeah, so I think Sandeep also covered that, right? So basically Postgres is an advanced open source, and it has got, the capabilities what we have discussed. So this is going to accelerate the innovation in AI development. So that's more about the session actually. So we are not comparing with the other database engines, but how Postgres is going to help in accelerate the journey in AI ML development. So that's the intent. Yeah.
Thank you. My talk is about monitoring. So I was wondering, did you try or how do you think is it possible to use monitoring data from logs or from statistics collector to predict some catastrophes with our database with AI and all these features?
Yeah, so with respect to the analytics, how we have to capture from the log, that's your question? Yeah, log analysis and prediction. So basically, when you try to develop the AML, so you usually hook it up with either, cloud metrics, or, so basically it needs the log data. Either, so there are different types of log which we can maintain. Is Postgres logs or from the CloudWatch? So that should act as a source for us. So we need to identify like what is the source for these predictive analytics. So once we identify that, then we can build it. It's as simple as like going to the different stages and then building the predictive analytics. So basically identifying what logs according to your business needs is what plays an important role with the predictive analytics. Yeah, thank you.
So, adding to that, not only predictive analytics, right? So let's say if by looking into the logs, if let's say any system failed, so how do we ensure, proactively take the steps to handle it in future so that that particular issue doesn't happen? So again, that logs helps in analyzing all these, not only to enhance the functionality, to also address the current issues.
When you mentioned schema versioning, is it kind of versioning that comes with the GitHub, or what do you mean actually, schema versioning?
Schema versioning.
Yeah. So in the schema management, right? Yeah. So as part of Postgres, it is one of the capability. So where you are able to manage that schema. It's not like dedicated to a single schema or something like that. But yeah, so you can maintain even the versioning as well with respect to Postgres. So it's just a capability which I meant to say. Development versioning. Copies. The different copies of the development. Yeah.
Different schema with the
Yes.
something like on top of the schema.
Yes. So it's like maintaining the versions. So like how you maintain for a GitHub and kind of stuff, right? So similar way. Maybe.
So just to add a point here, the way you maintain the folders in your desktop, right? So sometimes what happens, it is very difficult for you yourself to identify where my exact, let's say you implemented logic A in one of the folder and logic B in another folder. So sometimes it is very difficult for you yourself to maintain in your database, in your system, right? So that's why you maintain something like versions with functionalities, whatever implemented, which is easy to track and easy to implement.
Capability is not there is what we wanted to ask. It's there because direct Postgres versioning is not there. We wanted to know how we want it, right? So you cannot directly manage or you cannot directly version the database.
You can add to that.
Yeah. So we cannot do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.